Welcome on in, everybody, to the Keys and Credit Podcast. I'm Ethan Rebuck with Cutler Real Estate, sitting next to Brian Winkler with Pursuit Lending Group, and we are excited for you to be with us for this next 40 minutes. Sit back, grab a drink, and relax while we talk about all the good stuff and buying a home in the winter and real estate transactions and all in the winter. Before we get into that, we're going to talk about the last 2 weeks or so and just what happened. So, Brian, share us what happened in the last 2 weeks.
What happened in the last 2 weeks? We've actually been pretty busy.
Great.
I know most haven't been in this market, but I've been pretty busy. Nothing, it's not like all investment properties are all self-employed people. It's kind of a hodgepodge of everything. So for us right now, it's been pretty normal. I would say our numbers are looking like they did in July, August. Can't think of anything special that's happened in the last 2 weeks. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it was.
How about you?
I felt like things picked back up. Like
Yes.
for me, I two first-time home buyers, and we went out the one night and got them both done in the same night after showing them. The one met them literally 4 days before, so it was truly remarkable. Awesome. Can't say I've had that happen too many times.
No, it doesn't happen very often.
It's a beautiful thing for both of us, and all parties included. But both of them were up north, Aurora and Cuyahoga Falls, and in multiple offers, dealing with cash offers. You know how difficult that can be. So things have picked up, meeting with new buyers going into the new year and so forth. So just setting those appointments, getting ready to go full steam ahead, as I'm sure you guys are. So that's awesome. It is. It's a great time to be in real estate. I read the last week that this year was the hardest for real estate agents and the real estate industry in a whole. So the fact that we're making a podcast hopefully helps. We'll see.
Yeah, man, I hope so. It has been a rough year for most folks. I'm on different forums and things and talk to a lot of folks. And, on our side, the lending side, there's been a lot of people were thinking this last quarter of this year was going to be some record-breaking thing, and it didn't happen. So I think a lot of people were banking on that happening. Like they were staying in just to be around when that happened, and it's not happening. It's probably not going to happen for a while. So I've heard of a lot of folks getting new jobs, getting part-time jobs, switching companies because the grass is always greener at another company, but it's really not.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of that. But as far as clients go and business-wise, all's good.
So let's talk about that real quick before we go into these winter months and what we can expect for our clients, consumers. When it comes to switching jobs, right, what does that mean on the lending side? Because a lot of times, consistent jobs can be a draw for getting that pre-approval. So give us some insight on switching jobs.
That's a really good question. It depends on what you're doing. I mean, if you're going from, if you're W-2'd, you get a W-2, and you're going from a salaried job to a salaried job, then you're going to be fine. If you're hourly, as long as you're kind of staying in the same line of work, you were full-time before, 40 hours a week and 40 hours going into the new job. And that's a big thing. A lot of people think, well, I worked 39 and a half hours last week, or that's not full. What we're looking at, even if you've got 1 week where you work 39 hours, that can be a problem. So anytime I've got a client, especially a first-time home buyer, who's thinking of switching jobs, I tell them, make sure. I don't care if it's really slow on Friday and you can cut out of there an hour early. Don't do it. Wait till we close and you've got the house. But that is a big thing with the hourly people. Self-employed's a little bit different. If you're going from self-employed to W-2, then you're probably going to be okay as long as it's a full-time job and it's similar to what you were doing self-employed. Now, if it's the opposite, and you're going from W-2 to being self-employed, no. At a minimum, if you're really, really lucky, maybe a year, and you got to have a full year's tax return. So if you do that in December and you roll around to the next December, there's no tax return that was filed yet. So it's real tricky if you're going self-employed. Self-employed can be a real pain in the butt sometimes. But just regular switching jobs from this company to that company normally isn't that big of a deal, unless something else is changing. The way you get paid, if you go from salary to commission, salary to, I get now a lot of my income is going to be bonus based. that also you're going to need to show a pretty significant history of that before you can count it. So
Yeah,
it just depends on the situation.
And I don't mean to go on too much of a sidebar, but when it comes to that, and you say the full tax year, right?
Yep.
Possibly, if you're an independent contractor, you could go with just a full year.
Yep.
But talk about, getting those tax breaks in different ways. Like if they're writing off items, that can completely kill their tax return. So
that's why I think right now and for the next 3-4 months until that self-employed person files their taxes, now is the time. If you're self-employed and you know you're going to buy a house in 2025, you need to talk to someone like me at some point in the not too distant future before you file those taxes, because it is going to be a 2-year average of your bottom line, not your gross. It's really going to be your net. There's a few things we can add back in, depreciation and stuff like that. But if I have your 23 return and you tell me how much of a house you want to buy at some point in 25, I'm actually going to be able to tell you how much income you're going to need to show when you go sit down with your accountant. This is the time of year I start to hear from my self-employed people or my investors, people who want to buy investment properties. They're going to get me last year's tax returns. We're going to review everything, and then I can literally tell them, hey, you're going to pay the IRS a little extra this year because you have to show this much income this time.
Right.
And that helps the accountants out. Of course, the accountants, the professional, the CPA, they're going to do your taxes the way they should do their taxes. But at least you can give that accountant an idea of like, hey, man, I want to buy a $300,000 house this year. I got to show $10,000 more in terms of my bottom line this year than I did last year. So they can know what to write off and what expenses to throw in there and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so we have two type of clients, going into this year, during the winter months, and that is our, clients who are looking down road, right, sitting on the sideline for now, and then you have the clients who are ready to go. Who has a bigger advantage?
Always the client's ready to go.
That's right.
Yeah, always. I mean, it's funny. You work weekends. I work. That's part of the deal.
Yeah.
Somebody will call me up on a Wednesday. I'm going to start looking at houses and just ask questions. We don't do the pre-approval. And I'll tell them, probably should do the pre-approval right now in case you stumble across something you like. And it never fails. 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, saw the house, need to make an offer in an hour, and then we're scrambling. And that's fine. That's why we work when we work. It's not the 9 to 5 thing. But always the person who's prepared, 100%. I try to tell anybody, if it's within 12 months, you're going to buy a house within 12 months, let's talk now.
Right.
Maybe there's something on your credit that needs fixed, and it's going to take 6 months to fix it. Or if you save this much more money and put that down, it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
That's always my advice, but.
Right. Yeah, I've had 2 conversations this last week, and it was with first-time home buyers who, are getting ahead of the game and saying, let's meet up, let's talk about these things, let's, talk to XYZ, and that is a great thing. You want to be prepared going into it. We don't want to be scrambling. You don't want to be going on Zillow and I want to view this house and being, sent off to whoever it is. So, it definitely, I 100% agree. And that is one of my biggest tips for first-time home buyers.
It's going to save you time too, because
oh my gosh,
if you're showing someone $300,000 houses and they can qualify for 150, you're wasting your time. So yeah, it's a big, being prepared is a big thing.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that is a huge thing when buying a home is if we're looking at something you can't afford. I mean, that is why there is a limit on, how many I will show before like, okay, let's get serious, get this pre-approval. And it depends, on the client, how well I know them.
Yeah.
But I'm not driving all over, XYZ to look at $1 million properties when.
Well, that's a good question. So I know some agents, how they kind of deal with that. Some will agree to show one house before they tell their client, you've got to get pre-approved. What do you see? What does your team, what do they go by?
Yeah, so typically I'll show the first house, right? And depending on who it is, I will show other houses, but I'm always stressing how important it is to talk with the lender and get those numbers in check. It's not something to be scared about. A lot of people they get freaked out, whatever. They want to talk to you, they want to talk to me. Yeah. They're getting worried, but it's not as scary as it is. So I'm always like, okay, we looked at the first house. Well, let's talk with the lender so we're prepared, and we can go from there. Because even though we can get it done in an hour or 2 hours, if we're in multiple offers and we don't have our pre-approval yet, that listing agent's like, what's going on? And then the seller has doubts.
Yeah, I mean, that person may be self-employed. Self-employed people, I need to see the tax returns. Unless you've got those tax returns on your phone and you're ready to just shoot them over to me, it may take a couple days to do that pre-approval, depending on how quickly the client can send that stuff in. So, now if you're CEO of a company and you're making $300,000 a year salaried W-2,
Yeah.
it's going to be an easy pre-approval. But yeah, it depends.
Right.
But you've got to, in my opinion, again, I don't pretend to do what you guys do, but at least one, I would think, you've got to develop that relationship with that client before you can really kind of tell them this is what we need to be doing.
You hate to be too pushy, right? In an industry where, we are salespeople, I try to take that salesperson aspect out of it and just be more human-like, right? That's who people want to deal with. And so you don't want to be pushy, but you want to educate them. And you want them to be making the best possible decision for themselves.
Realistic.
Yeah, right. When it comes to first-time home buyers, you don't want to be looking at a house, they fall in love with it, and then they can't afford it. And then I'm getting yelled at by the wife. I don't want to get yelled at by the wife. That's a husband's job.
This is why I like it, because I don't have to be out there. I'm on the phone with them talking. So being there and witnessing that, it's got to suck.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why our advice is right, and that be prepared. Even before, if you're really, really smart, you're not even seeing that first house first. Because you don't want to fall in love with it. I hear it all the time. I have people on the phone who are sobbing because they can't qualify for the house, and that's really awful. It sucks, and I'm sure you've seen it too.
Oh yeah, all the time, and we, it's all about figuring it out. Can we make it work some way or another? But bottom line is sometimes it just doesn't, and that's where you got to be realistic with them. It even comes down to when you're offering on a property, and a client might not want to take your guidance. I tell them all I can do is give you the guidance on what to offer and what will win. If you don't want to take it, then, you're the one who's writing this offer. I'm not truly writing it. I'm just guiding you the best I can. So that can be difficult. I think there's just some difficult things I'm sure you've had, with loans. Have you had I'm sure you've had a few loans not close when you thought they were going to. How difficult of a conversation can that be?
Oh, it's awful. That's why when we do our pre-approvals, I like to think if I did the pre-approval outside of the client doing something stupid or the house not appraising or whatever, that thing's closing. And for the most part, it does. But again, sometimes, when you're doing a pre-approval, when you're talking to a client, that's why I don't like online mortgage applications, because whatever they say on there is what it is. When you're talking to them, you can kind of read what's going on. So some people, when I ask them, okay, you're paid by the hour, you work 40 hours a week. Yeah. So 40 hours, every single minimum 40 hours. Yes. So we pre-approve them. We get pay stubs in once they've found that house and they get under contract. And last week was 38 hours. The week before that was 36. That's a problem.
Right.
And that usually if something's going to die, so to speak, it's going to be really early, because that's when we got stuff. So it's part of our job and in our experience, when do I ask for stuff from a client? When do I not? The hourly stuff, if someone's telling me it's usually 40 hours, well, that would be a situation where I'd say, I'm not pre-approving you right now. I want pay stubs, W-2. I want these things in. So us doing it as long as we can kind of figure out, all right, this client, even if I'm conservative and they're off a little bit, they're still good. If it's a tight deal and they're kind of hem-hawing about how many hours a week they're working, then I'm hitting the pause button, sending them a list of things to send me, and then we're going to do that. But yeah, telling somebody that it's falling apart is horrible. I mean, that's why we do what we do up front, because we don't want to have those conversations. Sometimes you can't avoid it,
right?
But it's not going to be because of something we did.
Yeah.
So we're very, 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 very careful, which I'm not seeing out there. Very many other places are super careful about their pre-approvals. They're handing them out like candy right now. But because I don't want to do that. I don't want to waste my staff's time on a file when
it's a winner. They need the deal.
Well, exactly right. We've seen a lot of that recently. I guess that would be one thing about what I've seen recently is lots of desperation. Contract dates January 20th. We want to close December 30th so we can get the commission in before the end of the year. I don't care. Sorry, but I don't care.
I actually got told the other day, my title guy in the office was like, oh, we can close in December. I'm like, there's no reason to. Like, I don't.
If that's what everybody wants to do and we're cleared, go for it.
But that's what happens. Like we talked about on the last episode, when you're dependent on that commission check. I mean, you explained how you need to not count on the next check. And it's true. Until it hits your bank account, that money's not real.
It's not real, man.
So people rag on us for how much we make. I see it all the time over social media. If they looked into the actual numbers, they would be shocked. If they looked at my bank account from time to time in the first 6 months, and some people's even years, it is a grind. And during those periods, you don't have money, so you need to be saving up your money from the summer so that you can stay afloat in December and January.
Exactly.
But the problem with that is, what kind of work are you doing in December and January? So take us through what your December and January look like. Are you going into the office? Are we spending a lot of time at home? I know you got kids who are out doing all the fun stuff.
That's the weekend, so there's no weekends anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we don't do anything different. I mean, other than like right now, Christmas gifts for agents and things like that. So I'll be talking to you in a couple of days. Yeah. But a little bit, we are a little slower than normal. These next 2 weeks always are a little bit slower.
Yeah.
But we're still going to the office and still. I was talking to an agent this morning, and she's been busy, and she's always busy, and she basically took my words out of my mouth. The competition is taking it easy right now. Go steal a couple clients. If their agent's not calling them or their lender's not checking in on them,
yeah,
why aren't we doing it?
Right.
I mean, really, it is. Sadly, we're in a cutthroat business. It sucks. If you do things morally and ethically, you're going to be fine. A lot of people don't. But why aren't you working?
Yeah.
You can pick up a few new clients these next 2 weeks by doing something that somebody else is just sitting down. It's Christmas for 2 weeks for them, not one day. It's 2 weeks.
Right.
You can take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
And Mike is my business partner at Pursuit.
Yeah.
We've got some loan officers. We don't stop. I'll get calls on Christmas Eve. Christmas Day, we'll not answer the phone.
Right.
But Christmas Eve,
Let's be humans.
We'll be working. I'll be at home, but we'll be working. But no, this time of year, like the rest of the year, we're in the office.
Yeah.
We're going to closings. I got 2 closings tomorrow. I will go to those closings. Nothing other than that.
That's an awesome thing you do, though. I mean, going to closings, I have not seen it often. And, we haven't got to work together much, but I'll tell you from the brief interactions we've had over the last 2 weeks, you hit on it, communication.
Yeah.
We talked about it last episode.
Yeah.
Communication is everything, between loan officers. I mean, if you're slow right now and whatnot, and you're a loan officer, you're a real estate agent, we got to work on the communication. I deal with it with agents, lenders.
Make that phone call.
Make that phone call. Check in on that person. Check on that client.
You can use anything as an excuse. It's the holidays. Hey, just wanted to say Merry Christmas. You're right back in front of them.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of only sending text, but you could do that too. I mean, but a lot of folks aren't doing it right now.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
Right.
We're going to take advantage of that.
That's right. So for the holiday season, you're getting gifts. You're doing all these things for agents, for your clients. That's something that I've been dealing with the last week. We've been trying to. I'm not a planner. I always work from behind, so trying to get the ball. Yeah, I know, right? I just need a woman in my life to bring it all together.
That helps. Hopefully, Marcy's not watching this.
Right?
But yeah, it definitely helps. I mean, we got a Christmas party tomorrow, and
at the building.
Not ours. It's
okay.
Local agent and his team are having a party.
Nice.
So that'll be one thing that's a little out of the ordinary tomorrow. We've done a bunch of baskets to give away. Brittany's actually working on those today, so they're ready to go. So the next couple of days, tomorrow and Friday, we'll be delivering things and driving all over the place. But that's really the only different thing that we do that we don't do in March or April or September. It's still same old, same old. It's a grind, and you got to grind it out.
Yeah. That's what people don't understand from the outside perspective, and in sales jobs in general. It sucks doing all that we do, but obviously, if you put in the work, you're able to feast in the fruit of what you're to make of it. So it's an awesome thing, and that's why you have to keep working through these months, and not go on vacation and sit around and do nothing. So other than that, moving into the winter, right, and seeing the spring ahead, right? We're expecting maybe some rate drops down the road, hopefully.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can't,
I think literally like right as we speak, the Fed's deciding if they're
Okay.
But normally, mortgage rates, they already know what's coming.
It's behind the
It's
game.
probably not going to do a thing
Right.
to rates today. But yeah, again, once Trump is inaugurated and starts doing what he's going to do, should be hopefully mid-year, into the second quarter, beginning of the third quarter. We
Okay.
finally, that's what our secondary department's telling us, and the people that I listen to. But we'll see.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
We're used to this. It's been 3 years of ugh.
right.
And we're thriving in yuck. So if it changes, great. If it
Yeah.
doesn't, we're okay.
So that's why it's so important right now for these first-time home buyers in general, whether you have a growing household and, you're looking to outgrow that, you need to be reaching out to Brian Winkler,
Yes.
Ethan Rebuck. We need to make it happen. Have that game plan in place so that we're not scrambling once we get there. Can figure out your finances and so forth. But for the people presently buying right now, what are you seeing? I mean, I'm sure you've had plenty of people go under contract over the last few weeks. A lot of concessions.
I'm slowly over the last, I'd say the last 6 months, concessions haven't been a problem. Home inspections are a thing again. But but the home inspection thing's been that way for a while now. Concessions are getting a little easier and a little easier. And I would say if you're a buyer and you're thinking, I'm going to wait till weather breaks, don't do that, because you're going to have even more competition then. If you're going to do something, do it now. I mean, there's less people out there, especially during the holidays. I mean, that's why we slow down, because not everybody's thinking about buying a house, or they're just putting it on the back burner. Oh, wait till the first of the year. And we hear that all the time. Yeah, I'm thinking about getting pre-approved. Maybe we'll do it after the first of the year. But if you're serious about buying a house, do it in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You're not going to have much competition. If it has not been a buyer's market in a long, long time, take advantage of that in these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's what I was talking with an agent last night about. He said, "What are you seeing? Buyer's market, seller's market." Obviously, for the last 2 or 3 years, 3 years, all we've heard is seller's market, right? Seller's market, seller market, so forth. So, and I don't think that everywhere's a seller's market, or not seller's market, but buyer's market, as we move into this winter season. But more, we have our micro markets within them. So if you look at Northeast Ohio, I've seen listings last a little longer on Louisville, Canton, Massillon. Like Stark County has been moving a little bit slower, and so I think it's definitely more of a buyer's market right now, able to get concessions, get lower prices. I've seen it on my own listing. You hate to have that, but it is what it is. But once I was working up north, like I said last week, it's hot. Cuyahoga Falls, Aurora, those houses, it's like day on the market, and they got 4 offers. One of them's cash. I'm like, how do I compete with this? I mean, how much do I got to butter up this agent on the other side, So, but it's kind of weird, these winter months and how we're moving towards a buyer's market. It'll be interesting to come back later down the road and see what happens, because we know how this works. It's supply and demand, right? So if you have the low inventory and interest rates come down, your buyers are going to increase, and that's going to still have a frenzy and be a seller's market.
Yeah, rates come down. I think we're going to see more inventory. There are a lot of people who want to sell, but they don't want to pay the expensive house price, and they don't want to double it up with a 7% interest rate. Once rates come down, I think we're going to see a lot of people finally decide to unload their house. So at least inventory will be back.
Do you think it'll be more of a stagnant market then? I mean, or would you think it will be a buyer's market?
Well, I mean, yeah, if we have more inventory, then that just gives the buyers more power. Because all right, fine, I'm not going to buy your house then. I'm going to go buy this house. But right now, it's that other house doesn't exist. It's only this house and 15 people fighting over it.
Yeah.
So once there's more options for those buyers, then it'll be big for us, because we're not struggling with buyers. We have all the buyers in the world. We don't need any more buyers. We need houses for those buyers to buy.
Right, and a lot of that adds into that is new builds, right? And so we hit on it. We have a new president coming in, new office, whole new regime. a change in was it the Senate that changed this time? Yeah, Senate changed,
Senate change, yeah.
and the House is staying on the Republican side. So
Exactly
you have a full Republican, pretty much office. You even have the judicial courts Republican as well.
Yeah.
So a lot can be done, and one of the big things that Trump has pushed out there is building new homes, right? Opening up federal land to build new homes to increase that supply.
Yep.
One of his other kickers was the mass deportations. We'll get rid of people from homes. Not saying I agree either way or not, but I'm just saying this is what his whole policy was,
Exactly. Yep.
And I'm just interested for what it's going to look like. Obviously the market's been what it was, and you can equate that to policy, COVID, whatever you want to call it. But in a world where people feel so hopeless, first-time home buyers, people with growing families, what does the next 6 months to a year look? And I'm excited.
I'm super excited. I'm interested to see what happens. And it's not just home prices. I mean, if someone's making more money or more of their income is staying in their pocket because we cut taxes, whatever, they've got more money. That's going to help us. It's going to help the market. I mean, all these things play into that.
Yeah.
I'm cautiously optimistic that things are going to change for the good, because we've seen a lot going against us for the longest time.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a little more pro housing market.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, when he was in before, he was pushing for FHA to go back to being a first-time home buyer thing, which it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't now. Hopefully he doesn't do that, because a lot of first-time home buyers only qualify, or a lot of people only qualify FHA who aren't first-time home buyers. They have a house now because of divorce or whatever. Their credit's got a little dinged up, and FHA is their only option. Hopefully he doesn't do that. I think he wants to privatize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac again. That could be ugly, or that could be great. But I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, again, there's so much that's gone against us these last 3-4 years that we'll deal with it and we'll be fine. But I think it's going to get a lot better.
Have you looked into some of the things that Robert F. Kennedy has said? Obviously, he was a presidential candidate, and now he is going to be a part of Trump's cabinet. Some of the things he said for first-time homebuyers. Have you read into any of that?
No, not a huge RFK fan.
Okay.
When it comes to food, great. Stay away from the environment. Stay away from a lot of things. I don't agree with him on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't. What was he?
So he was talking about basically giving a down payment. I forget how much it was, but he was giving it to first-time home buyers and saying that if you're a first-time home buyer, we'll give you this lower interest rate. So if you're a first-time home buyer, we'll give you a 3% interest rate. How do you think that could work?
Not good. Nothing's free. I mean, the rest of us are going to wind up paying for that 3% rate. So if they're getting all these 3%, and our rate should be 5, well, our rate's going to be 6, because we got to make up for the 3% that we're giving here. So hopefully he doesn't do that.
Okay.
A lot of people may not agree with me on that, but what we've learned is nothing's free. It's coming from somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody else is going to pay for it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So that's why, again, his thinking on food and health, awesome. But there's not a whole lot of other stuff he said that I've been a big fan of.
Well, that's like all politicians. You can't really, you can't agree with everything they say.
No, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. I don't care who it is. They're all,
absolutely.
They're all little, they're salesmen.
Yeah.
With money. That's pretty much what they are.
So what do you think is the key? I mean, as we move into this next year and years beyond, to make it more affordable and make it easier for first-time home buyers. I mean, we obviously know where Trump stands and what he plans to do, but do you think that anything else can be implemented?
On like a federal level?
Yes.
I'm smaller government, the better. So no, I don't want the government involved in really any of it. If they can give us back Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and that'd be great. But I can't think of anything the government would do other than cut our taxes and let us spend our money the way we want to spend our money.
Yeah,
that'll help.
Right.
But other than that, I don't want them touching anything.
Hey everybody, I'm Ethan Rebuck with Cutler Real Estate, helping all buyers across the Northeast Ohio area. You can reach out to me at 330-430-9663, and I'm sure the next call will be to Brian Winkler with Pursuit Lending Group.
Yeah, unless you have cash to pay for that house, you're going to need me. My phone number is 330-573-7110.
Let's make it happen. Welcome back, everybody, to the #1 real estate podcast based in the Canton area. Me and my co-host, Brian Winkler with Pursuit Lending, are happy to be back for you. Brian, we've talked a lot about buyers over this podcast. We got a little dabble into politics, but let's touch on these sellers, right? I have a lot of buyers out there who are looking at properties and they see the prices getting slashed, right? They're asking me, what's going on? Well, sellers are getting desperate.
Yeah, what's going on?
They're getting desperate, and you know it's hard because not a lot of buyers want to move during this season. They don't want to make decisions right before Christmas. They got money going out and so forth, and the sellers still have to sell. You know, if it's a vacant property, then it is a very adamant thing that we get that sold, that they get it sold. I'm dealing with it on both fronts, and it's opening up a lot of opportunities for me and you to work and get some concessions and get those costs that come behind the scenes with title and the lending fees all covered by the seller. So it is a difficult time for sellers, and it's tough conversations. We've touched on this before, and it's truly isn't the best time for them.
Now, how do you go about concessions? Because I bought my last house, and you would probably disagree with how I did it. I negotiated with the seller. This was our price. I wanted them to pay $3,000 towards my cost, so we just raised the price. I just went back and said $3,000 more. You pay $3,000. We really couldn't say no because his bottom line was the same. Now, how do you go about that?
So when it comes to buyers, I always just write it up. So say the house is listed at $180 and we're trying to get 6% concessions. I'm just going to put the 6% in there, and then I just give it to the agent. Now, that is a situation where it's just our offer. Okay. In a moment like we have right now in the winter and how desperate sellers are, it doesn't hurt anything to just try it. Ultimately, if I'm on the listing side in that situation, I'm going to be asking to increase the price, not 6,000, but it would be more, almost double that to cover those concessions. So, good example. I got a call on a property I think we had listed in September, and it was on the market for 3 days. Some action, no offers. We finally got an offer, and they were at a number, and they were asking for the 3% concessions. Before I even presented it to the seller, I asked the agent, can we increase their pre-approval, increase their purchase price to cover those concessions? So I always like to set that line right there. Can we do that? So and then I go to the seller and I say, my advice is that we ask for them to increase their purchase price to cover the concessions. We have no problem doing it. Yeah. And we're still taking a risk with the appraisal and everything. But yeah, it's a great time for concessions. And, if we can get them covered by the sellers completely and that we don't have to finance them, right? That's an awesome thing, right? So we got the closing cost, and I guess when we talk about concessions and we talk about increasing the purchase price to cover those, what downsides can we have on the lending front? What have you ran into in the last?
Well, basically by doing that way, hey, I'm going to buy your house for $180. Now, I have to change my mind. I need you to pay $6,000. We're going to raise that price to $186. You are the buyer's basically financing the closing costs by doing that. You're raising the price, you're raising the loan amount, you're covering those costs. Not a big downside. You figure every $5,000 of a mortgage, your payment's only going to go up like $30.
Right.
So it's not huge unless we have a really, really tight debt ratio and they can't afford that $30, which is very rare, then we don't care. Right. Now, it's got to appraise too. Now we got to be careful how high we're raising this price to cover these costs. Maybe it appraises at 180. Maybe it doesn't appraise for 186. But those would be the only two things. But don't see many times when that causes a big problem.
Yeah. And I haven't had too many issues with appraisals over this last year, even, moving into these months and being in multiple offers in some situations where the price goes 15,000 over asking or 20,000 over asking. Yep. Have not ran into appraisal issues. And even in that situation, it's still, you come back to the drawing table and you decide what you're going to do. So if you increase your purchase price to cover those concessions or, seller paid closing costs, and you run into appraisal issue, it's not over. It's just, you guys need to come up with an agreement. Are you going to reduce the price, or do you got a pile of cash laying around?
Yeah.
So,
and I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people don't realize on our side, if you're doing an FHA loan, for example, and you're doing the 3.5% down, the minimum down payment, that down payment's based on the loan amount or appraised value, whichever is less. So if you're buying a house for $200,000, then you're thinking your down payment's going to be $7,000. But if that house appraises for $198,000, now you're bringing 3.5% of that $198,000 plus the difference between $198,000 and $200,000. So that extra $2,000's coming out of your pocket unless you renegotiate. But I get that all the time. People ask, well, what if it appraises for less than? Well, then you better have some cash, is what it's going to look like, or you renegotiate. But a lot of people don't realize that. Even people in our industry sometimes don't know that.
Yeah,
that's a big thing.
Well, and I tell people it's a conversation for that problem to come up.
Yep.
I do not like to, if we have an appraisal gap in place, with the addendum, I don't like to, overload them with like, this XYZ is going to happen. Like, guys, if we run into it, we'll deal with it, and you'll have to, be able to make the best sound decision. If there is a gap in the appraisal and you have an appraisal gap addendum, that's the most extra that you will need to bring to the closing table. If you need help doing that, we can reach out to family and friends, or not family. They're not friends. Family. Wow. Let me check. Friends can pay the family.
Not on video. Actually, I did learn this week that on a conventional side, as long as you can kind of document, friends, fine.
Okay.
Family, fine. FHA, still more family.
Okay.
But, we're not going to go too deep into that. But,
right.
Gift money.
Gift money.
But if you did the addendum, then you've already set that expectation. They should know,
yes,
worst case scenario, I'm bringing an extra $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is. So that's on them to know.
What's the biggest appraisal gap you've seen?
I had one in Columbus that was somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000. I've had a deal in Columbus where I guess it really was an appraisal gap, but they knew going in. They bought the house for $550 something, knowing that it wasn't going to appraise more than $400. Now this was maybe 2 years ago. That market, Columbus, is a little bit different than here.
Hot.
They knew they were bringing that extra $150,000. They knew going in, but there were other offers for $540, $545, and they, so that was probably the biggest difference. I don't remember if we actually had an appraisal gap. I think everybody just knew going in, it's not going to appraise for this. You're going to need a lot of extra money, and they had it, so they were fine. But that down there, it was a lot of that stuff. We haven't seen nothing quite that bad here, especially now. But even when it was the worst,
I heard someone the other day paid $100K over asking for a house. I was kind of shocked. I was like, I don't know. I know it's a hot market, but at that point, it's just so crazy to believe.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it, but it happens.
Here we are.
Yeah, exactly right.
Oh, craziness. So, it just is it's a crazy, great opportunity for a buyer right now. Depending on your market, things have completely slowed down. Sellers are desperate, right? And so it means you can, get a lot of perks and incentives that way through seller paid closing costs and home warranty paid for, whatever XYZ. Granted, we still have standards. There's still, sellers still want to make money. So I feel like that's the bottom line for these buyers out there is one thing I always try to tell them is, put your feet in the shoes of a seller, put your feet in the shoes of a buyer. And sometimes we're lucky enough to have both sides where the seller has to then buy, right? And so they can understand where they come from. Yeah. But it is hard for buyers, to understand what that seller might be thinking when they're getting an offer that's $10,000 under asking or so forth.
Especially that first-time home buyer.
Oh, yeah.
They haven't gone through the selling aspect of it before. So
Yeah.
no, it's tricky. It's definitely better.
Yep.
And I think it's going to continue to get better as we go along.
Yep. One thing I always tell people is they can accept, reject, not say anything at all, or counter. So it's one thing I always tell my buyers, the worst thing that you want to have happen is them not talk to you again. If you don't hear anything, probably not a good day, but it just means it wasn't the house. So
right.
anyways, we are going to be concluding this week's episode, and just happy for everyone to be in here. We had our first podcast release today, and this will be coming out. I'm not sure when it's going to come out, but don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, boost engagement on that. And other than that, this is the #1 Canton Real Estate Podcast. Signing out. Thank you.